Park Racecourse. We're with group number 3, and as the BMW pace car pulls away, all of the cars follow, and we are ready to go racing. Group number 3, their first race of the weekend, Friday afternoon. The track has dried off. Of course, we had the torrential downpour during group 3's racing, the half-hour warm-up session earlier today, but the track since has dried out, so we should have a very fast, very competitive race. All the drivers are away through Big Bend. They'll take one pace lap, one warm-up lap. The BMW pace car will come into the pits, and they will look for a green flag and some exciting racing. On the pole, Gary Palmer. Next to him, Flavio Figueiredo. Row 2 features Chris Brown and Carlos Carneiro, Filho. Row 3, starting 5th, Bruce Press. Then it's Charles Scott. Row 4 has Ed Lelio, and then starting 8th is Del Auray. Row 5 has Cliff Townsend, Roger Brooks starting then 10th. Row 6 has Robert Willys starting 11th, and then 12th, Robert Gudheim starting in the 13th and final position. Row number 7 by himself is Kazu Onuki. Those first 4 drivers, Filho, Brown, Figueiredo, and Palmer, any of those drivers could win this race. They're an extremely quick, fast group of drivers, so we'll keep an eye on them, and we'll keep an eye on the entire field. Sun shining above. We do have, of course, a threat of rain today, but it looks like we're going to be clear for this race today. The strategy for Gary Palmer, what will it be? Always we are interested in the strategy of the start of the race because the pole sitter gets to determine the speed, and oftentimes the pole sitter will take a very slow speed trying to break the draft of the drivers behind and get a jump. Others will come across the line at a fairly quick clip. So let's see what Gary Palmer decides to do here. So far the driver's going very slow into the downhill section. Waiting for the cars to come onto the front straightaway. The BMW pace car now into the pits. The field looking pretty good. The starter keeping his eye on the field, likes what he sees and gives him the green flag, and we are racing. The drivers all fighting for position as they come past the start-finish line towards the first turn, and it looks like it's Carlos Carneiro Filho who has gotten a remarkable advantage at the start of the race and is now running in first place. Carlos Carneiro Filho has jumped from 4th to first place around both Gary Palmer, Chris Brown, and Flavio Figueiredo. A remarkable start. Jumped everybody, and Carlos has the lead. Gary Palmer runs second, Brown third, and Flavio Figueiredo has dropped back to 4th place. But what a start for Carlos Carneiro Filho, as our 4 leaders run through West Bend, and already our first 4 have begun to pull away from the rest of the field. What we would expect to see are racers grouping up into 2s, 3s, 4s, perhaps even 5 at a time, and doing battle amongst themselves, and that will be the case all the way through the field. Now your first 3, Flavio Figueiredo really falling away. Your first 3, Filho, Palmer, and Brown, together in a group, and they are beginning to pull away from the rest of the field. Flavio really seems to be having his problems at this point. Having started second, he has dropped to 4th, and he is away from 3rd place at this point in the race, and early on, a bit of a surprise. Carneiro Filho leads through West Bend. Palmer and Brown very close in 2nd and 3rd. You notice the difference in driving styles. Carlos, much more of a wild driver. He really throws the car around and thrashes the car through the turns, whereas the 2 drivers behind, Palmer and Brown, a little more conservative, a little smoother looking through the corners. It is Carlos Carneiro Filho, however, that leads the race, and I wouldn't be surprised if he turns in one of the fastest laps in the race. Flavio beginning to catch up now just a little bit. You see Chris Brown there in the multicolored car. Chris Brown in car number 7. The green, red, yellow, blue machine. So it is now 1, 2, 3, and 4. Flavio beginning to catch up. He had dropped back, but he now is beginning to reel in the first 3, and our first 4 have pulled away dramatically from the rest of the field. Well in front of car number 88, who runs in 5th place, and that is Ed Lelio. Now we take a look and see if anybody's going to make a move. So far, we've been static since the start of the race, with Filho up front, Palmer 2nd, Brown 3rd, and Flavio Figueiredo running in 4th place in car number 4. You see him there in the red machine. Nobody has made a move yet. A bit of a surprise, I must say, as close as these cars are running. I would have expected that our first 3 would have swapped positions at least once or twice already, but so far that has not been the case. Now Flavio closes dramatically on 3rd place. Whatever problems he may have had the first lap, he has certainly sorted out, and Flavio Figueiredo now closes on Chris Brown, and he may try to make a move in the downhill section. As you see now, he is right up on the back end. To the downhill. Filho continues to run up front. Let's see if Flavio makes a move on Chris Brown, running in 3rd place in car number 7. Brown takes a look inside Gary Palmer, coming into the big bend, and he cooks the brakes, but he gets by. He makes the move, and Chris Brown now runs into 2nd place. We thought Flavio might make the move, but instead it is Chris Brown who gets around Gary Palmer and takes over 2nd place. We drop back now and take a look at our 5th place running car, and you can see the distance already that the first 4 have moved out in front of 5th place. Ed Lelio in car number 88. Ed started in 7th and now has gained a couple of positions up and moves into 5th place. Ed jumped around Del Alray at the start, and also since then has made his way around car number 29, Bruce Press. Here come your leaders. Around Flavio Figueiredo, and Flavio dropped back. He appears to have regained 2nd place. It looked like he was behind Gary Palmer even as they were coming down the front straightaway, but it is now Chris Brown who has the lead. Carlos Carneiro, Filho runs 2nd, Palmer and Figueiredo, and it's a very tight battle there as we once again take a look at Ed Lelio in the green car number 88, who runs 5th, and he is by himself, and he has got himself a fairly significant lead away from the 6th place car, which right now is car number 3, Del Alray. Here we'll see the distance, the gap between 5th place Lelio and 6th place Alray, and there he is, car number 3, Del Alray. Del started 8th, so he has run up 2 positions. Field really spread out at this point. We've got our first 4 running very closely together, but then after that, you see the gaps here. Typically, we see cars that get into blocks, and we talked about that earlier in the program. We expect to see cars get into groups of racing and do battle as they hook up and draft one another, but here in positions 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it looks like everybody's pretty well strung out, and there's no real racing going on, no real serious competition. There is car number 38, Robert Goodheim, who is trying to make a run up through the field and doing, I must say, a pretty nice job of it. Robert started way back in 12th spot, and and he now has worked his way all the way up to the 7th position. So Robert Gudheim, and we watched him in practice, and he appeared to be turning in some pretty respectable times, was gridded back in 12th, but he is doing a wonderful job moving up through the field. And as I say, now runs currently in 7th position. To the downhill he comes. He will try to catch Del Rey and make a race out of it here. Still, these two remain fairly spread out, and then another big gap back to 7th place, and then we do have some battling going on back behind. We'll be following that in just a moment. But here is Robert Gudheim, still making up some ground. He is catching up, in fact, to Del Rey. Now we see back behind Gudheim, car number 29, and that is Bruce Press. Now Bruce started up in the field. He started, in fact, in 5th place, but Bruce has dropped back through the field. Bruce running 8th, and get a quick glimpse there of our leaders, and apparently it looked to me like Flavio Figueiredo now had the lead. We've got a lot of action going on now at several points on the race course. In fact, Flavio Figueiredo out in front of fellow countryman, fellow Brazilian Carlos Carneiro, Filho. Now the other good race going on the track right now are between these 4 cars. And there you see car number 20, Cliff Townsend, looking underneath Bruce Press, trying to find a way by into the first turn. Nothing doing there. Car number 33, Charles Scott, right behind Cliff Townsend as we see Cliff slide it through the corner. Car 26, Roger Brooks, also involved in this 4-car battle. So a really competitive race going on here for 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th positions. And you see here, Cliff Townsend looking again for a way by, and this time he does it in an unusual place on the racetrack. You don't expect to see passing going on there much. It's not a particularly easy place to get by, but it happens in the uphill for Cliff Townsend, who gets by and takes a position away from Bruce Press, car 29. Townsend started 9th. Now runs in 8th place, and you see car number 33, Charles Scott, trying to find a way by Bruce Press. Let's see if he can get the job done. Townsend leads the way into Big Bend, and then Press and Scott go side by side through Big Bend. And Charles Scott gets the position away from Bruce Press. So now Charles Scott gains 1 more spot. Now Charles had started 6th, dropped back, but now he is making his way back up through the field. This has allowed Cliff Townsend to pull away a little bit. Good look there at car 33, Charles Scott. Things not going well for Bruce Press, who would like to see himself going the opposite direction. He now being pressed by Roger Brooks in car number 26. See if Brooks can get a run on him into the downhill and onto the front straightaway. We mentioned how important the run out of the downhill was, as it gives the driver the chance for the draft. Now you see there Cliff Townsend using a little strategy, moving offline to the inside of the track, and he breaks the draft from the cars behind. They do not follow him, so consequently they aren't able to utilize the all-important draft. Roger Brooks hangs back still. The drivers, we are told, are allowed to make 1 move. It used to be you would see a driver moving back and forth on the racetrack to break the draft. They did away with that and indicated that the drivers are allowed 1 move offline to try to break the draft. For the most part, you'll find the driver behind will just follow him that 1 move down to the inside. The strategy now has become more like who's going to lead on what lap and where. use the draft, but use it intelligently and decide where you want to be on the track and what position you want to be on when the last couple of laps comes around. Robert Willys here in car number 60. Now we've got another battle. This is moving back now, positions 12 and 13. Car 60, Willys, just in front of Onuki, and the other green car there is car number 88, Ed Lelio. He is putting a lap on Onuki, it appears, and yes, he does as they move into Big Bend. But Willys, a two-car battle here with Onuki for 12th and 13th position on the track. This is Onuki's first race weekend. There's Ed Lelio closing up on Willys right now as we speak, and there is Onuki in car 99, the white machine. Just at the halfway point now in our race, 18-lap event. We'll be covering just over 27 miles today. Now the sky has become overcast, and once again, we might look for a potential threat of rain. And if that were to occur, look out. We could see some real dramatic changes in the racing and the positions here on the track. We are back with your leaders. And now it is Carlos Carneiro Filho who has regained first place. And it is a 1-2 Brazilian race at this point with Carlos up front and Flavio running right behind, and we do have slower traffic in front. The battle going on now between the four cars that we were following just a few moments ago, and here you see Carlos going inside Roger Brooks, and he gets himself sandwiched between, we got a Roger Brooks sandwich here. Now look at Flavio move inside, coming to the downhill section. A chancy move for Flavio, but he has to do it as he comes past and heads onto the front straightaway now, and Chris Brown behind. Gary Palmer appears to have fallen significantly away. He is way back there, just crossing the start-finish line now, but this is really some interesting, dramatic racing. There's Flavio and Carlos right together, both getting under car 33, and that is Charles Scott. And there's Cliff Townsend also moving to the side, or trying to anyway. Carlos gets underneath, so now we have a Cliff Townsend sandwich with some Brazilian bread. And we've got Carlos now, who's got himself in a good position. Now Flavio's going to try to get by before the uphill. If he doesn't, that could give Carlos a chance to break away. Let's see as they come to the uphill. And Flavio does not get by before the uphill, but will get by before in West Bend. We see Chris Brown also trying to negotiate traffic up above, so this could very well have made a big difference in the outcome of this race. Gary Palmer now caught up to that group, and we see Flavio, who really just about loses it in the downhill, really getting sideways there. And in fact, Carlos has taken advantage of the traffic, and he has stretched out a fairly nice lead as they come to Big Bend. Carlos really throwing the car around on to No Name. We'll get a good idea here as to the kind of gap that Carlos has. There is your first place car. Second place right there, Flavio Figueiredo. And third place, Chris Brown behind. So Carlos did really a remarkable job of getting through that traffic. And Flavio, once again, really getting the car out of shape. Gets a couple of wheels off at the top of the uphill. Does a nice job of saving it there. Flavio really trying to catch up with your leader, Carlos Carneiro Filho. And Carlos, as I say, did the job on getting around the traffic, positions himself properly, moves to the inside of the track to break the draft. And there you see Flavio trying to follow him in. Gap about 3 seconds between first and second. A few more seconds back to your third place car, Chris Brown. And Gary Palmer, our pole sitter for today's race, He's gotten caught up in that traffic, and he is now 4th place, but he is a ways behind. We weren't following the leaders the entire middle section of the race, and so it's hard to tell where Gary Palmer had his problems, but he was right up there and contending for the lead, and now he has fallen back and he is out of contention for this race. 3rd place, Chris Brown, right there. You see him in car number 7. He's got a shot at your leaders. 2 and 3. We're in the second half of the race. Once again, Carlos takes a move to the inside of the track, and once again, 2nd place, Figueiredo, 3rd place, Brown, follow. They want to try to keep the draft. They don't want to get too far away from Carlos Carneiro, Filho. Both are 1st and 2nd place cars. You've got a good shot of them. They're sliding through the first turn, sliding through Big Bend, really maximizing the use of the car, and Flavio is beginning to close in on your leader. It appeared as though Carlos might have been able to have put this race away, but in fact, Flavio now is only within a couple of car lengths. So through the first series of turns, Flavio has done a remarkable job of catching up, and look at how close he is to Carlos, and suddenly it's a 1-2, Brazilian 1-2, Carlos and Flavio, to the downhill they come. Chris Brown falling back a little bit, still remains in 3rd place, and here come your leaders. And the checkered flag now comes out, and what a close finish, and your winner, Carlos Carneiro Filho, by the barest of margins. And look at how happy Carlos Carneiro Filho is after just barely fending off Flavio Figueiredo for the win. We've got one happy driver here in car number 37. What a dramatic finish to the race. It didn't appear as though Carlos was going to have any problems at all, and suddenly Flavio closes up. Carlos barely holds him on by 1/10th of a second rather, and wins the race. Flavio 2nd, Brown is 3rd, Gary Palmer finishes 4th, Ed Lelio holds on to 5th place. 6th place goes to Robert Gudheim, a great race for him. Del All Ray is 7th, Cliff Townsend in 8th, Charles Scott is 9th, Bruce Press finishes 10th, Roger Brooks is 11th, Robert Willys is 12th, and Kazuo Nuki finishes in the 13th and final position. A great race this afternoon. We'll expect more great racing tomorrow. Fastest lap of the race, by the way, goes to Flavio Figueiredo with, he gets it under 1 minute, 1 second, 1 minute, 0.8 of 1 second. We'll be back with Group 3's second race in just a moment.